The young Marco brought home an orphan girl. A few days later, her lips were always a vivid, swollen red, looking for all the world like a woman well-loved. The night before she was summoned to her next appointment, I warned her. "Don't go," I said. "The young Marquis is not a kind man." She shot me a sidelong glance, her eyes filled with disdain. "And what's so bad about him? Is it better to be like you, a bed-warming maid for the old Marquis?" My face turned deathly pale. I stopped trying to persuade her. But I had seen it. I had seen it with my own eyes, how my older sister was violated by the young Marquis in front of a crowd, becoming a mere plaything for the young noble sons until she died, unable to bear the shame. That was a real reason I had become the old Marquis's bed-warming maid. Chapter 1. At noon today, I saw the young Marquis, Xie Liankai, emerging from the woodshed. Behind him, little Ade's small mouth was so red it looked ready to bleed. I didn't know what delicacies the young Marquis had fed her. The lanterns of the corridor flickered as curfew approached. A group of young maids leaned against the wall, whispering incessantly. "Who says it isn't so?" one maid hissed. This morning, when she got out of bed, her body was covered in red handprints, much larger than her own. She's just a lowly orphan. Yet the young master insists we call her Aid, saying her whimpering sounds as sweet as a sparrow's. It makes me sick. Spring is often the season for delusions. Although the maids kept their voices low, their words carried clearly. I frowned and scolded them sharply. Curfew is almost here. If anyone utters another word, I'll have your tongue. They shot me resentful looks but slunk back to their rooms. When I turned around, I found Adi standing right behind me. Her beautiful eyes were brimming with tears, her lips bitten white. She had heard them, and she was defiant. "Go to sleep," I sighed. "The curfew is starting." "They're just jealous because the young Marquis treats me well," Aid said, standing her ground. "If they had the chance, who wouldn't want to climb into his bed and live in Moonlight Pavilion?" I looked at her closely under the moonlight. When Xie Liankai first rescued her, she was filthy and bedraggled. He had plotted it all out, ordering the servants to bully her so he could step in as her savior. I had occasionally helped her when I couldn't bear to watch the abuse. Tonight, she wore a pale, yellow silk dress that accentuated her delicate, pitiable frame. It was clearly a gift from Xie Liankai. She had bathed, smelling of a woman's perfume, her face flushed with a soft red, as if her entire heart already belonged to him. Xie Liankai's favorite tactic was the carrot and the stick, breaking a woman down only to shower her with affection until she willingly became his dog. I grabbed her wrist. "Don't go. He is luring you. He will never be sincere." Ada stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. In the moonlight, her cold, lonely silhouette looked hauntingly like my sister from years ago. Buried memories surged back. I tightened my grip. "I've prepared some supplies for you. Run away. Get as far from the Z Manor as possible." To my surprise, Ade shoved my hand away. "Sister, I thought you were different from the others." "No," I whispered, desperate. "I've seen it. He will humiliate you in front of everyone. He will lock you in Moonlight Pavilion like a dog and let those noble brats toy with you. I've seen it." Ade stood still, watching me for a long time. Suddenly, the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking smile. "You've seen it? If you've seen it, then why are you still the old Marquis's bed-warming maid?" The words struck me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless. It was true. Though I was a high-ranking maid in the manor, I was nothing more than the old Marquis's hidden mistress, a thing that could never see the light of day. "I thought that once I rose in status, I would remember your kindness," she sneered. I didn't realize you were just like them, unable to stand seeing me favored by the young master, wishing I would just leave. As she turned to walk away, the wind caught her hair, revealing a faint pink handprint on the back of her neck. My eyes burned. I couldn't bear to look at the signs of their intimacy any longer. "You've already satisfied him, haven't you?" I called out. Adie's aggressive stride faltered for a split second, but she didn't look back. She vanished into the darkness. The hoot of an owl echoed through the night, lonely and desolate. I stood in the cold wind, realizing that after tonight, Moonlight Pavilion would have another tragic soul. Perhaps another life would be extinguished. When I was 8, the crops failed everywhere. The young Marquis of the Z family staged an act of charity. Any family that sent a daughter to the manor as a servant would receive a bag of rice. To the starving peasants, getting rid of a mouth to feed and receiving precious grain in return was the deal of a lifetime. They praised the young Marquis's benevolence. That was when my sister Yeshuang was sold into the manor. I used to sneak in to visit her. She was always covered in dirt. When I asked if she was okay, she would smile. How could I not be? I have meat and fish every meal. She would pull a crushed pastry from her pocket for me. But when she reached out, I saw the bruises on her wrists. She was lying. Whenever she lied, the corner of her mouth would twitch. But as time went on, she smiled more. One day, her lips were swollen and red. I asked if she had snuck some chicken and got the blood on her face. She blushed and scolded me, saying I didn't understand, that it was a sign of the young Marquise's love. I didn't understand then why her pain had turned into joy, or why the bruises on her arms had moved to her neck, forming a ring of bright red marks. Then came the day she wore a peach blossom silk dress, looking like a fairy. "Laluo," she told me, "I'm moving into Moonlight Pavilion. When I've made it, I'll take you to eat the best food in the world." Moonlight Pavilion was the most exclusive place in the manor, reserved for the noble sons and their beauties. I was happy for her. I waited for her to come out and tell me if it was a palace of fairies. I never saw her alive again. She vanished. Then, one morning, I saw a mangled corpse being hauled out. The peach blossom dress was tattered, her body covered in horrific wounds. Her face was a bruised purple, her mouth hanging open. They threw her into a mass grave. I ran to her, trying to fix her clothes, and found a crushed peach blossom cake hidden in her bodice. It was for me. It was half rotten and smelled of death. I stuffed the crumbs into my mouth. "It's delicious, sister. Please wake up. I want more." She never answered. I cried until my throat was raw, until my head spun. That was the day I learned what fear was. It was also the day I learned to hate. At 15, I sold myself to the Z Manor. My mother, who still believed the young Marquis was a saint because of the compensation money he gave her after Yue Shuang died, agreed instantly. "Serve the nobles well," she told me. "Don't end up like your sister." I laughed inwardly. For 7 years, I had dreamed of my sister's bloodied smile and that crushed cake. I looked exactly like her. When Xie Liankai first saw me, his eyes lit up, but he didn't remember her. To him, we were just replaceable toys. The first few days were hard. He arranged for the other servants to isolate and bully me. In the dead of winter, they locked me in the woodshed to starve. That was when he appeared draped in mink fur, offering me hot food and a kind smile. I wiped a blood stain from Ade's skin with a towel as I told her this. "I knew what he wanted," I said coldly. I pretended to faint to escape his trap. "He likes watching pure girls slowly fall." So I took the filthiest path possible. I crawled into the old Marquis's bed instead. He was shocked. He thought I was naturally depraved, But through that depravity, I gained the power to investigate Moonlight Pavilion. The Z family had been declining for years, surviving only on past glory. So how did they remain so wealthy and influential? It was Xie Liankai's business in Moonlight Pavilion. He didn't use professional courtesans. He used pure girls from good families or innocent servants. The noble sons, bored of common prostitutes, flocked to see these clean girls humiliated. It was a nightmare fueled by the exploitation of women, and it was how Xie Liankai bought his connections. The old Marquis knew, but he didn't care. I was going to enter Moonlight Pavilion myself eventually, I told Aide. Someone had to. I pulled a small box from a hidden compartment in my bed. Aide suddenly pressed her hand over mine. Her eyes were bright, her grip surprisingly strong. Sister, wait a few days. Let me prove my loyalty to you. I looked at her. I had spent 2 years manipulating my way to the top, thinking I was alone in this darkness. But the hatred in Aide's eyes was unmistakable. Inside my box was a list of every guest who had visited Moonlight Pavilion in the last 2 years. I had gathered it through an old woman named Granny Lou and her grandson, Cricket, who lived near the pavilion. No one suspected a child playing nearby. I had names, titles, and the frequency of their visits. I also had a list of the girls held there, though it was incomplete. Aide interrupted me, her voice hoarse from whatever she had endured. I have the full list of the girls, sister. I've confirmed every name. I looked at the dark circles under her eyes and almost wept. I had thought I was the only one who could walk this path. I had carried this for 9 years. I felt I should be the one to pay the price. I applied anti-inflammatory ointment to her bruises. Does Xie Liankai seem different lately? I asked. Aide tilted her head, a slight flush on her face. He's weaker than the others. I noticed he's been taking wolf and tiger medicines to compensate, but they wear off quickly. I smiled. For 6 months, I had been slipping a slow-acting toxin into his food. It was undetectable by silver needles. In another month, his manhood would be completely destroyed. The Imperial Inspector is coming next month, I whispered. We have the lists. We can take this to Lord Chu. Aide sighed. Sister, you're too naive. We have no formal complaint, no signatures. The Z family is powerful. They'll just accuse us of slander. But if you can keep Xie Liankai away for half a day, I can get the girls in the pavilion to sign a petition. I was stunned. Who was this girl? Her handwriting on the list she gave me was elegant and strong, nothing like my clumsy script. She had gained his trust in less than 2 weeks. We were both just girls in our teens, forced to grow claws to survive. On the day we planned to strike, I watched Xie Liankai finish the breakfast I had meticulously prepared. He headed for Moonlight Pavilion. I grabbed a plate of pastries and panicked, running toward him. Today, I wore peach blossom pink, the exact same shade my sister wore the day she died. As he turned, I accidentally slammed into his back, sending a peach blossom cake tumbling to the floor. Xie Liankai was quick. He caught the crumbling peach blossom cake in his palm, though the delicate pastry shattered into several pieces upon impact. I puckered my face, looking utterly heartbroken. This was the first time Yuelwo made sweets specifically for the young master. What a shame! It's ruined. I reached out to take the fragments and throw them away, but to my surprise, Xie Liankai popped them directly into his mouth. Now, my little lady, don't be sad, he said smoothly. Since you made this especially for me, how could I possibly let your hard work go to waste? He ate every last crumb, even lingering to lick his fingertips. A moment later, the same finger pressed against my lips. Why did you dress up so exquisitely today, huh? He leaned down, a playful smirk on his face. I lowered my head to hide the flash of revulsion and hatred in my eyes. Yuelo wishes to take the young master somewhere, I whispered. I don't know if it would be a bother to your schedule. He hesitated, appearing to weigh his options. I decided to add a bit of fuel to the fire, lightly tugging at his sleeve. The old Marcus is away this morning. It's the only time. Xie Liangkai didn't hesitate any longer. He burst into a boisterous laugh and pulled me into his arms. If a beauty makes an invitation and I refuse, wouldn't that make me a man who doesn't understand romance? I led him to the place where my sister was buried. Because this was a private matter, he didn't take the carriage. To stall for time, I walked as slowly as possible, though it meant enduring his wandering hands along the way. When we arrived, I touched the nameless headstone. The old agony rushed back. Sister, I thought, look at him. This is the face of the beast who killed you. One day, I will see him ruined and make him pay with his life. Tears began to fall despite myself. Xie Liangkai wiped them away with feigned tenderness. There, coming to such a desolate place to stroke a grave. It's a bit macabre, isn't it? I cursed him in my heart. I moved, letting the spring breeze catch my peach blossom dress, the fabric fluttering to reveal glimpses of skin. His eyes turned red with hunger, looking as though he wanted to devour me right there. Don't you find this outfit familiar, young master? I asked, pushing him back slightly. He studied me intently, his gaze sweeping over my figure. It looks beautiful. As for whether it's familiar, I'd have to take it off to be sure. My sister had been so brutalized by him that even her remains were incomplete. I had carried this grudge through countless sleepless nights, yet he had forgotten everything. I sneered inwardly, though my face remained soft and submissive. About 6 or 7 years ago, the young master favored a girl named Yue Shuang. I am Yueluo. Xie Liangkai scrutinized me again. Finally, memory seemed to spark. No wonder your eyes looked so familiar when I first saw you. You look exactly like she did when she was younger. Suddenly, his expression darkened, his narrow eyes glinting. So, you brought me here because... I pulled out a handkerchief to dab at my eyes. Today is the anniversary of her death. I wanted her to see that the young master favors me too. She was unfortunate and offended a noble, so she couldn't stay to serve you. I have to fulfill that role in her stead. It wasn't actually the anniversary of her death, but he wouldn't remember. He let out a long sigh of relief and pressed against me again. My sweet girl, you should have said so sooner. Why bother serving that old man? I gave him a playful tap on the chest. Because the young master was heartless. You didn't even recognize me the first time you saw me. Of course I was angry. When I was little, everyone said my sister and I were cast from the same mold. Did you think we didn't look alike? Do you not like me? Xie Liangkai caught my hands, his breathing becoming heavy. I like you, of course. You're even more elegant and cold than she was. Liar, I teased. You don't even remember what she looked like. How can you compare us? Haha, I might not remember, but the art collection remembers. Don't worry, I'll have an artist paint you too, so you can see for yourself. I knew he was vile, but I hadn't realized his depravity went so deep. Just as I was about to push him away, I saw a Kongming lantern rising in the distance. Ada had succeeded. Soon a young maid would come to find me. I let out a sudden sharp cry, interrupting him. Young master, behind you. I saw her. I saw my sister. Xie Liangkai jumped, visibly startled. Don't talk nonsense in broad daylight. Where are their ghosts? She was covered in blood, I cried, my lips trembling. She looked like she didn't want to see us together. The night before, I had exhausted myself, making sure the old Marquis was satisfied. This morning, I had prepared a lavish banquet that was elegant without being gaudy. The old Marquis was so impressed by my cleverness that he specially authorized me to serve alongside Inspector Chu. Everyone expected the inspector to visit the Siam Manor first. Instead, he went straight to Moonlight Pavilion. I waited at the manor for half a day, my mind racing with accusations. I wanted to report Xie Liangkai for kidnapping and rape. I wanted to report the entire Z family for collusion. I was terrified I would misspeak or that Xie Liangkai would find a loophole in my testimony. But the inspector never came. Granny Lu eventually brought me word. Xie Liangkai and Inspector Chu had entered Moonlight Pavilion together, laughing and joking like old friends. I clung to a shred of hope. Maybe the inspector already knew about the filth in the Sai house. Maybe he was investigating the pavilion from the inside. But I waited and waited. The moon rose high. The candles in Moonlight Pavilion were lit, casting the slender silhouettes of women against the paper windows. Inspector Chu wasn't coming. The cold wind shook the dry branches. The night was silent, and for the first time, I felt a hatred and despair so profound it threatened to swallow me whole. The Z family was powerful, but they weren't royalty. If I had no evidence, they could easily cover their tracks. I had believed a pure official could fix the world's wrongs. I was wrong. I worried for aid. She had promised to stall Xie Liangkai, to keep him from returning to the manor too early. If she saw him with the inspector, how devastated would she be? When Adi finally returned, she was covered in fresh, horrific bruises. Her dark eyes were vacant, as if she had run out of tears. I called her name softly, but she didn't respond until I touched her face. Then she let out a jagged, hoarse sob that tore through me. Sister, the inspector and Xie Liangkai, they're in league with each other. She clutched my clothes, her voice breaking. I thought officials were supposed to be upright. I didn't know the inspector already knew everything. He joined them. He took pleasure in it. She buried her face in her hands. Sister, we can't get revenge. We can't. I had suspected this the moment I heard he went to the pavilion. But give up? After 9 years of this crushing weight? Never. We will have our justice, I said, my voice steady and cold. If the inspector won't do his duty, we will force him. The inspector only dared to enter Moonlight Pavilion so brazenly because the Z family's reputation was untarnished. If rumors began to swirl throughout the city, he would be forced to investigate to save his own skin. During my time in the old Marquis's bed, I had feigned worry about the young master's secret business. The old man, in his post-coital pride, had bragged to me. That was how I knew Xie Liangkai kept a ledger, a record of every transaction involving the noble sons. It was his leverage over them. And there was something even more damning. Xie Liangkai loved to have artists capture the scenic beauty of the women being violated, especially the ones he personally brought in. He called it a blessing for them to be immortalized. If we could get that ledger or those paintings and spread them through the city, the scandal would be too big for even an inspector to ignore. If we can keep Xie Liangkai away for a few more days, I told Adi, can you find the evidence? Ade understood immediately. She wiped her eyes, her mind already clicking into place. He's grown complacent with me. I can get in and out of the pavilion. If you can keep him occupied, I have a 70% chance of success. The next day, I crawled back into the old Marquis's bed. I used every trick I had learned, casting aside my dignity to keep him happy. The young master says Moonlight Pavilion is the most joyful place on earth, I whispered to him as I washed his aged body. But I think it doesn't compare to being with you, my lord. He laughed, pleased. My lord, I heard a troubling rumor today, I continued. People are saying it's strange that Inspector Chu went straight to the pavilion. They're saying there might be something shady going on with the Z family. I'm so worried it will hurt your reputation. I suggested he have Xie Liangkai invite the inspector to the manor for a formal banquet instead, to show everyone they were transparent. It would stop the gossip, and you could show the other noble families who really rules this land. You might even get some gifts from those who want your protection. The old Marquis loved the idea. He scolded Xie Liangkai the next morning, ordering him to stay away from the pavilion and focus on hosting the inspector at the manor. Xie Liangkai couldn't refuse. For 3 days, he and Inspector Chu were inseparable, touring the city and attending banquets. The rumors shifted. Now everyone praised the Z family's hospitality. Bribes poured into the manor from other families, hoping to gain the inspector's favor. Xie Liangkai was drowning in gold and flattery. He had no idea the storm was coming. Meanwhile, Aide found the ledger and the paintings. "Your plan worked, sister," she whispered, breathless and pale, when we met in secret. "I found them, but I was afraid he'd notice they were gone, so I spent the nights redrawing them. I left the girls' faces out, but the men, I made sure they were recognizable. I turned the pages of the sketches. My blood ran cold. The depravity was worse than I had imagined. Then I saw it. Even without a face, I knew her. I knew the way she knelt, the curve of her shoulders. It was my sister. The lines were shaky, the paper wrinkled where Aide's tears had fallen. "They will pay," Aide whispered. I closed the book, my tears falling silently. My sister had saved every scrap of food for me during the famine. She had thought the young Marquis was her savior. She had died in a nightmare. "There is a woman at the West Market," I said, recovering my resolve. "A musician named Yue Niangzi. Her sister was also taken to the pavilion. She knows the world of pleasure better than anyone. She will help us." I met Yue Niangzi under the guise of buying supplies. When I showed her the sketches, her gentle smile vanished, replaced by a cold, burning fury. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Turn this into a pamphlet, distribute it everywhere, as many copies as possible." "Consider it done," she said. Within days, a pamphlet titled "Secrets of Moonlight" flooded the city. It detailed the most scandalous romances of the local elite. The public was stunned. The elegant Moonlight Pavilion was exposed as a den of filth. The Z family's mask was shattered. The outcry grew so loud that Inspector Chu could no longer ignore it. Inside the manor, I heard the sound of crashing porcelain as Xie Liangkai and the inspector argued. The time had come. I clutched the original ledger to my chest, waiting for the inspector to emerge. I intercepted him in the hallway. My lord, I have a report." Inspector Chu stopped, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. He moved his hand and I saw it, the jade thumb ring on his hand. It was Xie Liangkai's favorite piece. The bribe was literally on his finger. Xie Liangkai had presented that ring to Inspector Chu days ago. To think the man was still wearing it, it was a brazen display of their bond. Xie Liangkai's expression was dark, his face a mask of irritation and brooding anger, but notably absent of any panic. He showed no fear. As the two men walked out side by side, it was clear they were nowhere near tearing off their masks of civility. The hand I had hidden, clutching the ledger, suddenly went limp. I dropped to my knees, pressing my forehead to the ground. "My lord, I beg you to see the truth. The Z Manor has been framed. Please, you must clear the young master's name." Inspector Chu's footsteps faltered. He let out a cold snort and walked around me without a word. Jie Liangkai, however, reached down and pulled me up. His face softened for a rare, fleeting moment. "You are a loyal one," he said. "Rest easy. Inspector Chu is merely annoyed. He wouldn't dare abandon the Z family. After all, he and I are grasshoppers tied to the same string. As for whoever is stirring up trouble behind my back, they must be tired of living." Once they were gone, my legs gave out. I collapsed onto the floor, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I tried to pour a cup of tea to soothe my parched throat, but my hands shook so violently, the water splashed everywhere. Finally, unable to contain it, I opened my mouth to scream, but only a silent, raspy wheeze came out. The ledger, filled with proof of every atrocity, was still in my possession, but no one wanted it. I had managed to draw blood in this city. Countless people were now pointing fingers at the Z family. I thought that even if the inspector was corrupt, a scandal of this magnitude would force him to act, to provide an explanation, to seek the truth. I was wrong. When a man's heart is filthy from the start, good and evil are just words he defines. Inspector Chu declared the sketches to be fabrications. He vowed to find the culprit behind these slanders and make an example of them. In a world where seeking justice usually takes months of bureaucratic stalling, the law suddenly moved with terrifying speed. Panicked, I realized I had to check on Yue Niangzi. Taking advantage of the chaos in the manor, I slipped out and ran as fast as I could toward the West Market. I wanted to give her every cent of my savings and tell her to flee the city. I prayed to every god I knew not to let her be caught. But from a distance, I saw soldiers surrounding her flower boat. The vessel was a wreck. They had already ransacked it. Yue Niangzi stood in the center, her posture straight, showing neither fear nor submission. The lead soldier unsheathed his sword and pressed it against her throat. "Who ordered you to spread these lies? Where is the original evidence?" A crowd had gathered, whispering and gasping. I blended into the throng, invisible. Yue Niangzi didn't flinch. She maintained that everything she drew was the truth. My heart ached. When the soldiers grew tired of her silence, they dragged her away. For a moment, I wanted to lung forward to tell them it was me. It was all me. As they hauled her off, she looked up and caught my eye. The iron-willed woman suddenly had tears in her eyes. Her lips trembled as she silently mouthed, "Go, go." Go. Logic vanished. I pushed through the crowd, my mouth opening to scream, when a pair of hands clamped firmly over my lips. "Sister, don't!" It was Aid. She had used the confusion to find me. She dragged me away to a deserted alley before letting go. "I can't let her suffer for me," I choked out, my voice thick with guilt and desperation. "I have money. I'll go to the magistrate's office and buy her freedom. I'll tell them everything." I couldn't even see Aid's face clearly. My vision was a blur. All I could do was sob the same words over and over. Slap! The force of the blow snapped my head back. Aid's stubborn, tear-streaked face came into focus. "Sister, they took her to make an example of her. Anyone who speaks up for her will be arrested as an accomplice. You've planned this for years. You have the ledger. Do you want it all to fail now?" "But I can't." "Listen to me," she hissed. "Xie Liangkai has already realized there's a mole in Moonlight Pavilion. If he finds the forged ledger I left behind, he'll find me. We're running out of time." Xie Liangkai discovered the swap soon enough. That ledger was his lifeline, containing the names of the powerful, including the inspector. In prison, Yue Niangzi endured horrific torture, but she never broke. She insisted she acted alone. But Xie Liangkai wasn't a fool. He knew there was an insider. He never suspected the women who adored him. But Ade was an orphan with no roots. He hadn't realized she could read and write, let alone draw. As night fell over the city, a heavy, suffocating silence took hold. I knew the storm was here. The inspector was furious that Xie Liangkai had lost the ledger. He ordered the city gates sealed. I was safe for the moment inside the manor, but it wouldn't last. Once they finished searching the guards and the rivals, they would move to the pavilion and then the manor. I'll confess, I told Ade. I'll tell him I bribed Yue Niangxi. I'll say I stole the ledger and burned it. You take the evidence and run. Even if we don't get revenge, just live, please. Ade remained calm. You've never even been inside Moonlight Pavilion. Your handwriting is average. He won't believe you. I'll tell him I hired someone. Just let me... Ade grabbed my hands. Sister, don't panic. It's not over yet. The dam in my heart finally broke. It is over. It's all my fault. Not everyone should have to carry this hate for 9 years. You shouldn't have to die for my grudge. Tears streamed down Ade's face. I've hated Xie Liangkai for 9 years too. My pain is no less than yours. The air went still. Ade wiped her eyes, her face pale and peaceful in the moonlight. Sister, I never told you my real name. It's Su Di. Di as in the golden list of scholars. My father was Su Jiana, the vice commissioner of the pacification office. I knew she was no ordinary girl, but I hadn't expected this. A high-ranking official's daughter? Why was she in this filth? 9 years ago, during the famine, Vice Commissioner Su was sent to manage the relief efforts. Her older brother, Su Shu, received an invitation to Moonlight Pavilion. He went, and he never came back. Su Shu was a man of integrity. He hadn't just rejected the gifts of the pavilion, he had threatened to shut the Z family down. That was his death warrant. The other corrupt officials, who were already feasting on the relief grain, conspired with the Z family. They framed the Su family for the very theft they were investigating. Ada was only 6. Her father had just explained her name to her. Don't ever look down on yourself because you are a girl, he had said. Study hard. Your name means success. She told her story with a chilling calmness, as if it belonged to someone else. I couldn't stop crying. The Su family was executed. Only Ade survived because a loyal steward swapped her with his own daughter. She had spent years looking for Moonlight Pavilion. She had walked into that nightmare willingly to destroy it. 9 years ago, your sister died because she went into the pavilion, Ade said. My brother died because he wouldn't. My hate is as deep as yours. We sat in silence for a long time. I wanted to comfort her, but words felt hollow. We were children of a golden age, yet we lived in such darkness. I wanted to clear my family's name alone, Ade whispered. But I can't do it. Sister, you have to remember, Su Jianan and Su Shu. They were good men, good officials. A sense of dread washed over me. Why are you telling me this now? The city is a trap now, she said. But the people's hearts aren't sealed. You have to go to the capital. You have to find the Princess Royal. She is known for her fiery temper and her hatred of corruption. If you can strike the Dengwen drum, she will listen. We'll go together, I said, trying to pull her up. I can't go, she said firmly. I'm a girl from the pavilion. If I disappear now, it's a confession. But you've been in the city for 10 years. You know the secrets. I'll stay and draw their attention. You have to be the one. I left that night carrying the lists, the signed petitions, and the ledger. To avoid notice, I took nothing but a few scraps of silver. I looked back at Ade one last time. I didn't understand then why her gaze was so final. I went to the husband of Auntie Kui. He was a night soil collector. His daughter, Xiao Kui, was in the pavilion. I told him I needed to get out of the city. He didn't ask why. He just told me to hide in the manure cart. It's the only way through the gates, he said. I wrapped the evidence in 3 layers of oilcloth and climbed into the vat of filth. The stench was overwhelming, the acidic waste stinging my eyes. Or perhaps I was just crying. At the gate, a guard opened the lid. The moon reflected off the black, yellow sludge. The stench was so foul the guard stepped back, gagging. "Go! Move it! It reeks!" And just like that, I was out. Outside the city, Auntie Kui's husband pulled me out and gave me a set of clean clothes, Zhao Kui's old things. I clutched the evidence to my chest, covered in filth, but breathing the air of freedom. "I'm not suffering," I told him. Not at all. The capital was 500 miles away. I couldn't ride a horse, and I couldn't afford a carriage. I ran. I ran until my feet were a mass of bloody blisters. I ran until my legs were numb. I wasn't just running for myself. I was running for Granny Lu and Little Cricket. I was running for Yue Nyangzi, suffering in her cell. I was running for Auntie Kui, waiting for her daughter. I was running for Ade and her father. I was running for the hundreds of girls in Moonlight Pavilion. 3 days later, I reached the capital. The Dengguan drum was right there. My legs felt like they were made of lead, every step an agonizing drill into my bones. I grabbed the mallet and struck with everything I had. Boom, boom, boom. The words of my accusation were burned into my mind. I told the Princess Royal everything, the collusion, the kidnapping, the inspector's betrayal. I showed her the signatures of 100 girls and the ledger of shame. The Princess Royal's eyes burned with fury. I collapsed, begging for justice. I told myself that if they turned me away now, I would kill myself on the palace steps. I wouldn't live in a world this cold. But the Emperor was just. The Princess Royal was just. She reached down and helped me up, unbothered by my stench and rags. "You've worked hard to get here," she said. "Rest. Leave the rest to me." The Emperor dispatched Prince Qi to Tianxian City to restore order. I was escorted back in a swift carriage. When I arrived, I demanded the release of Yue Nyangzi. A young maid told me she was dead. Xie Liangkai had tried to make her talk. When she wouldn't, they stripped her and poured boiling water over her, over and over, scrubbing her skin away with brushes until there was nothing left. I had been too late. And Ade? Xie Liangkai had realized I was gone and that Ade had been my confidant. He had imprisoned her, intending to violate her, but his body was already failing from the toxin I'd given him. In his rage, he forced her onto a wooden horse torture device. She endured the agony but never said my name. Eventually, he threw her half-dead body into a mass grave. The wild dogs got to her. The Z family was dismantled. The prince was ruthless. With my evidence, the family was executed and their cronies were stripped of their titles. Inspector Chu was exiled to the frontier. I went to see Xie Liangkai one last time in his cell. He was a shell of a man, filthy and broken. He looked up and laughed at me. "I never thought you'd be the one to get away," he rasped. 9 years ago, you killed my sister," I said, my voice trembling. "You killed the Su family. You killed so many innocents. Did you never have a single nightmare?" "Sudi, that woman," he chuckled. "She told me her name at the end. I thought her whimpering was sweet, but as she was dying, she told me her name meant the golden list. Isn't that funny? You thought of her as a sister, didn't you? Do you know what the men did to her? It's all in the book she drew." My face went white. I hadn't had the heart to look at the last pages of the sketches. Ade had drawn herself. "No matter how I tortured them," he coughed, "those damn women wouldn't say where you went. Do you know what she said before she died? She called for you. Sister, sister, it hurts." He laughed until he choked. He was a monster, a demon. I pulled a hairpin from my hair and lunged at him, stabbing blindly. The guards held him down, letting my blows land. Blood splattered across my face, blinding me. Prince Ki stepped in and stopped me. My sister, the Princess Royal, told me to keep him alive. Dying like this is too easy for him. He brought a skilled physician to keep Xie Liangkai alive so he could endure daily torture without the release of death. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The Su family was exonerated. The names of Su Jianan and Su Shu were restored, but the girl who wanted it most was gone. Moonlight Pavilion was burned to the ground. In the flames, I saw my sister smiling. Laluo, when I've made it, I'll take you to eat the best food in the world. I heard Audi's voice. I understand. She was only 6 when her world ended. She had walked into the abyss for her family. She never cried out in pain to me, but I remembered the silent tears she shed in the bath when she thought I wasn't looking. I remembered Yue Nyangzi, who called herself a coward, but died to protect me. I remembered Auntie Kui and her husband. I built a memorial for them all near my sister's grave. Every year I talk to them. I tell my sister I eat whatever I want now. I tell Aide that I've kept my promise. We opened a school. The Princess Royal helped me establish a school for girls. My feet still ache when I stand too long. The scars of my journey to the capital, a permanent reminder of the price of justice. A little girl ran up to me as classes ended. "Teacher, school is over. Let's go home." I smiled and pinched her nose. "Have you been studying hard, Aide?" "Of course. One day, I'm going to see my name on the golden list." As I walked home, I looked back. The women of the pavilion who survived see me as their savior. They say that as long as the sun rises, evil cannot hide forever. Is that true? Is a victory that cost so many lives really a success? Is the world truly fair? The Princess Royal says that one day the world will be peaceful and men and women will be equal. Will that day come? I choose to believe it will.